IELTS Writing. What do they want from me? Wow, the amount of times I get this from students. They're confused. They don't know. They've taken the exam numerous times, stuck at 6.5. They really don't know how to improve their essay. So if you're in this situation, don't worry about it. This tutorial is going to cover a lot of this. So first of all, you should be aware that the IELTS writing section requires academic English. Now, even native English speakers don't know, even some native English speakers do not know what academic English is. And if you ask them to write an essay, they would write it probably the same way you would when you started out preparing for the IELTS exam. So in this tutorial, we're going to look at what's expected from you in the IELTS writing. We're going to look at 10 basic rules for academic writing. We're going to then look at, this is the part that I love personally, is the stylistic elements for advanced academic writing. When I'm correcting essays, I love it when I can start teaching this part because it's that step further. We're moving away from corrections and we're moving towards improvements, which, as I said before, a lot of native English speakers would probably benefit from as well. We're going to look at the common types of IELTS questions. There's 4 of those. We're going to look at the essay writing process, and then we'll discuss at the end the importance of getting feedback. So it's quite a packed tutorial today. We're going to be moving quickly. It's going to be very practical. Grab a pen. This will help you understand, help you remember what has been taught, and it'll help you the next time you start writing your IELTS essay. So before we get started, I want to mention 3 things. Number 1, if you are struggling with the IELTS and you need to improve quickly, then have a look at our site, IELTSPodcast.com. We've got a free course there to help you pass faster. It's all around the AI essay checker with lots of tutorials for free when you sign up. We're getting some great results with the AI essay checker, especially the students who upgrade to the premium one, who get more feedback, who get more detailed explanations, and then just end up scoring higher quicker, especially overcoming that dreaded 6.5. Number 2, these tutorials are free. I do not charge a single penny for these tutorials, completely free. All I ask is that if you found this tutorial valuable, then please share it with your friends, family, loved ones. Share it with anybody you think would benefit from it. I would be extremely grateful if you do that. You can even tag IELTS Podcast in the process. That'd be super as well. Third, who am I? I'm just going to say this briefly. We get a ton of new listeners for every episode. My name's Ben. I started off teaching IELTS years ago. I'm a native English speaker. I lived in England for the first 20 years of my life, and then I lived the next 20 abroad. So you've probably got a rough idea how old I am, even though you might think, wow, he sounds like a 20-year-old. He looks like a 20-year-old. Well, no, it's not the case. But I started this because I was so frustrated with the IELTS. Students were coming to me. They were ambitious, go-getters. You know, I love working with these types of students, but I couldn't help them at first. I was stuck. I was struggling. I was like, what is this IELTS exam? Why am I repeating myself in my essay? Why can't I get ideas? Why do sometimes I just get an explosion of ideas? So how did I solve that? I started asking all the professionals I could find. I recorded the interviews. I released them for students. I then tested what they taught me on my students, and if it worked consistently, I put it in our online courses, and that's why our online courses can get you the success that you need, can give you the strategies, the exam skills, the language skills that you need to get to band 7, 8 or 9. Let's jump into it. So what is needed from you in the IELTS writing section? Well, first of all, we all know, hopefully, that If you're doing the academic route, you have to describe a graph. It can be a bar chart, a flow chart, a pie chart, whatever. And then for the general, you have to write a letter. It can be formal, semi-formal, informal. And then for task 2, you write a formal academic essay. And academic writing is a skill in itself. You'll probably need it anyway if you're going to study abroad. So you might as well learn it properly now while you're preparing for the IELTS. And we're going to look at some 10 basic rules for academic writing in a minute. You've got to understand the task requirement. As I said before, the writing exam is a reading exam. You've got to really understand the question prompt. You've got to understand the time management situation that you need. Usually students assign 40 minutes for task 2, 20 minutes for task 1. You've got to understand the question. You've got to look at understand the different types of questions and how to plan your essay accordingly. And also, this is something that a lot of students kind of miss, is that 1, you've got to get familiar, obviously, with the question types, as I just said, the format of the exam. Even have a look at the criteria. The criteria for the writing exam is divided up into 4 different parts: grammatical range and accuracy, lexical resource, cohesion and coherence, and task response. Have a look at that criteria. You can probably be able to understand then why, what's required of you, and possibly even you'll be able to see where you're going wrong. If you want a quicker way to do that, have a look at our online essay checker. Put your essay in and you'll see where you're losing points on your essay. Now, another technique that a lot of students kind of struggle with is that when you're preparing for the IELTS, you're going to get a question on kind of a very general question on something that's happening in society nowadays. And it's probably going to be a question about what's happening in society in the West or on a global issue. So you could study IELTS books, preparation sites, content all day long. But what a lot of tutors fail to mention is that you also need to get up to date on world events. You need to start filling your head up with what's going on in the world. So if you've got no opinion about social media, if you've got no opinion about globalization or climate change, or should criminals be put in jail or sent to rehab, then you need to start forming opinions about this and filling your head up with ideas so that when you do get a question about climate change or whether criminals should be in rehab or put in jail or put to death even, you can form at least a couple of sentences and you've got a general position. Okay? Moving on, 10 basic rules for academic writing. Clarity. Clarity trumps complexity. And this is kind of one area that gets a lot of students confused, because on the one hand, they want to write complex sentences to make sure that they get a band 7. But on the other hand, if the language skills aren't there, if they don't have the ability to write a complex sentence, then it becomes unclear. And this is very dangerous, because now you've written a sentence that's not grammatically correct. This makes it difficult to understand. And now your essay is not coherent. And now you could even risk losing points on task response, because the examiner cannot understand what you've written, so he doesn't really know if you've answered the question. This is why grammar is so incredibly important. My advice for this is play it safe on exam day. When you're preparing and writing essays, be adventurous, get feedback, which is a point I'm going to mention at the end of this tutorial. It's very important. And that's when you start pushing the envelope, so to speak. That's when you start testing your ability. And one final thing on complex sentence structures. They are needed if you want to get a band 7 or higher. So my advice is only use the complex sentence structures that you are 100% confident that you are using correctly. Now, a cheat, or not a cheat, but there's two ways to do this. You can master a conditional, and you could also use a framework for your essay. And this is what we teach with our C2 Band 9 templates. Our Band 9 templates just make this far easier, far faster, and it just speeds up the process incredibly. If that sounds interesting, go to IELTSPodcast.com, sign up, and join that Pass Fast course that we offer for free for every student that signs up. Formality. You have to maintain a formal style. This means you do not use contractions. You do not use informal expressions. You do not use slang. Quick example here, because you probably, or you might not even be aware that your spoken English is informal and might even include slang expressions. This happened to me actually. I learned when I was learning Spanish. I left England. I went to do the Erasmus program. It's like a student exchange. I went to Spain and I spent the whole summer making friends with Spanish guys and girls. And I was literally just learning Spanish, speaking to students, speaking to my friends after the football, during the football game, going out drinking, eating tapas, all of the wonderful aspects of Spanish culture, and it was going really well. Then I started the university in September, and I wanted to say to the teacher that the printer wasn't working, and I basically said, the printer is effed, okay? And the teacher just looked at me, and then I realized, I was like, okay. I can't really, and I said it in Spanish, I didn't say it in English. La impresora está jodido. But I couldn't, but I didn't realize that this was sort of like very informal, and I didn't know it was the incorrect way of saying it. So you might be writing like, I don't know, the use of, the use of climate change technologies is totally going to change. I've even seen totally gonna change the world. Okay, using totally like that is quite informal, and gonna is definitely informal. So we've got to avoid those. How do you know that you might be using slang or informal expressions? Well, you get feedback. You can use the AI essay checker. You can get a tutor to look at your essay. I'll mention that in a minute. Objectivity. You've got to present your information impartially without showing personal feelings. This is so important. The amount of times I see a student get so emotional about a topic, and I'm like, hey, slow down. All we've got to do is communicate clearly. We do not have to convince the examiner that nuclear power is dangerous. We just have to write clearly. That's all. Don't let your emotions get involved. Accuracy. You've got to make sure that when you're reporting, especially in task 1, that you're using the correct figures, you're using the correct numbers, and you're using the correct facts. For task 1, for example, if you're saying milliliters instead of liters, then that is a very severe error, because all the numbers now that you're reporting are 100 times smaller than they are in the chart, for example. Also, it's got to be reasonable. We cannot say something like, Ethiopia has one of the largest water export businesses in the world. That's ridiculous, because we all know Ethiopia is a hot country that struggles with water shortages and droughts. So if we're talking about Ethiopia being a water exporter, clearly wrong. And that goes back to what I said right at the beginning of becoming aware of what's going on in the world. Structure. You've got to organize your essay with a clear introduction, 2 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Some tutors say go for 3 body paragraphs, write a 5-paragraph essay. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's needed. I think it's over confusing it. Cohesion and coherence. Link your ideas with linking words. Make sure it all connects smoothly. Again, Our Band 9 framework does this for you automatically. Now, a few basic points: punctuation and grammar. What I see a lot of times is that students will be like, oh, Ben, is a 5-body paragraph essay, is a 5-paragraph essay better than a 4-body paragraph essay, a 4-paragraph essay? And I'm like, look, that is irrelevant. There's no point in focusing on these minor differences if your punctuation and your grammar is still at a band 6 level. It doesn't really matter if you write a 100-paragraph essay if your punctuation and grammar are poor. And a lot of students believe that the shortcut to getting a band 7 is just learning the exam skills, when in reality you need to focus on both of them in a lot of the cases. Some students have amazing language skills, and for them they can pass the exam by just using a framework. And these are the stories where a student passes the exam in 3 days, for example, from 0 to band 7 in 3 days, because they already had the language skills. They already had them, and they just needed the exam skills, which are a lot quicker to learn. In most cases, most students need to learn both the language and the exam skills. Vocabulary, again, it's one of those language skills. We've got to show a range of vocabulary. Try to avoid repetition and go for topic-specific vocabulary. Referencing. Referencing, when you're at university, you might say, as the study by James Peterson and David 1997 said, the use of forever chemicals was a dangerous matter, XYZ. You don't really need to do that for the essay. You just need to kind of like give stronger examples. And I've given full tutorials about giving examples. We've got a module about it in the online course. So if you struggle with examples, it's an important area to master. Revision and proofreading. So you want to be, this is a skill in itself. When you are writing your essay, there's a few different ways. You can check it and correct it while you're writing. What I prefer to teach is that you write your essay, you focus on getting all the ideas out, the structure right, and then you go back and you look for mistakes that you've made. Stylistic elements. Redundancy. As I said before, this is one of my favorite areas to teach. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to go pretty quickly because we've still got a lot to cover. These are advanced skills for your writing. You probably need these if you're around a band 7 and you're going for a band 8 or 9. Redundancy means using words that are not necessary. So we could say, I believe that in my opinion. We've had 2 words there that basically mean the same. I believe and my opinion. It's much better just to say in my opinion or I believe. Okay? So the key here is to trim the unnecessary words and write in a more succinct, concise manner. The beauty of this is that when you start to incorporate these skills, they start to spill over into your speaking, and you start to become a better speaker. And also, you'll be able to identify people who cannot speak correctly or efficiently. And these people usually waffle a lot. Next skill, parallelism. Parallelism just adds that style. It makes your writing flow. So when you're giving a list, for example, we can use parallel structures. And an example would be, reading enhances vocabulary, improves writing, and sharpens critical thinking. Can you see we've got that rhythm there? We've got the adjective structure, we've got enhances vocabulary, improves writing, sharpens critical thinking. And it just adds that little bit of flow to your writing and makes it easier to follow, easier to read. Hedging. Hedging expresses probability rather than certainty. Now, when you're writing in your essay, you could say something like, all countries all countries restrict pollution. Now that is incorrect, okay, because some countries do restrict pollution, other countries don't restrict pollution. A lot of countries try to restrict pollution. So a better sentence would be, most countries in the developed world try to restrict pollution. You see? And that's far more accurate. This is a whole class in itself. But if you see, when you're reviewing your essay, you see some absolute statements, they usually, you can usually find them in the present simple or with always or never, then you need to just double check and probably adapt it and modify it so it says most countries or usually countries. These kinds of words just to hedge it. The most common types of task 2 questions are opinion essays, do you agree or disagree? Discussion essays, discuss both views and give your own opinion. Problem solution essays, these are the easiest, I think. And 2-part questions, which are also relatively straightforward. The key here is to make sure that you identify the question and you use the correct structure when you plan your essay to make sure you're addressing all the points in the question. Again, a framework and a system can help you immensely when you start your process, because it's so important to get it right at the beginning, because if you start off with the incorrect understanding of the question, then you make an incorrect plan, and then you end up with an incorrect essay, you've lost a lot of points. You've written an essay that you think should be written, when really you should be writing an essay that answers the question in front of you. Again, these are all skills that are pretty quick. These are usually exam skills that are pretty quick to solve, especially if you've got an effective course. Frameworks help significantly with addressing this issue. Now, as I just said, the process for starting your essay is so important as well. It's like, you're on the tube and you want to get from Westminster to Elephant Castle in London. Now, if you start off on the wrong line, you're going to end up at the other side of the city, and you might end up in Waterloo instead, when really you want to get to Elephant Castle. And this is the same. You think you're writing an essay that answers the question, but then you double check and you're like, actually, I didn't answer. I just answered what I thought was asked. So again, pay special attention, and a framework can help you. Very briefly, this is the process. Make sure you understand the question, generate ideas, make an essay plan that make an essay plan that answers the question being asked, triple check that your plan answers the question that's been asked. And when you're planning, start off with your body paragraphs, and then you'll get the content you need for your introduction and your conclusion. Also, most of the points are picked up in the body paragraph anyway, so that's where you want to put your focus. When you start writing, obviously, you start with your introduction, then your body paragraphs, and then your conclusion. Again, a framework makes this quick and automatic. Final points. To improve, to get better, to get past 6.5. You see, I just introduced parallelism there. You see how it had that rhythm? Anyway, to improve, to get better, to get 6.5, you need feedback on your essays. I've said previously that without feedback, it's like running in a forest with a blindfold on. You're going to hit trees. You're going to get hurt by things you cannot see. Getting feedback helps you improve quicker. How do you get feedback? Well, you can ask your friends to look at your essay. You could ask a native English speaker to look at your essay, but they're probably unaware of issues such as cohesion and coherence and task response. They should be able to help you with grammar, which is good, which is a big point for a lot of students. Also, have a look at the AI essay checker. That's going to instantly show you where you're losing points. Our AI essay checker is free, but if you want more detailed feedback and more accurate feedback, you have to upgrade to the premium one, and we have to charge for that because it measures a far larger amount of data points, and that's why it can give you more accurate feedback. Also, you can get an ex-IELTS examiner to review your essay. This takes a little bit longer. Personally, I think obviously it's higher value than the AI essay checker. You get more feedback, more detailed feedback, but of course, it costs like $20 to get this feedback, whereas if you use the AI essay checker, it'll cost you something like $12 per month, and you can submit as many essays as you want to. The successful students nowadays are using both. They're using the AI essay checker to get it as best as they can. Then they'll submit that to the ex-IELTS examiner, who will just kind of finish off and offer them the guidance to get to the next level, to get to that band 7, 8 or 9. That's it from me. It's been quite a lengthy tutorial. I hope you found it valuable. If you did, please share it with your friends, family. Send it to your dad, your mum, if they're preparing for IELTS as well. But the most important thing here is to take action. Take action. Sign up to the email list at IELTSPodcast.com. You'll get a free course there on how to improve your essays faster. You'll get a free course on how to use the essay checker. And you'll get a special introduction to offers that will, again, help you improve faster. That's it from me today. Have a beautiful day. Good luck. Keep moving forward. You've got this. In a year or two, you'll be looking back and you'll be like, wow, I did it. I got that band 7. I used the AI essay checker. I got that band 7. I got into the master's program in Canada. I could start writing academically. I'm now working in England as an optician. I'm now working in Canada. I'm working in Australia. I got permanent residency, whatever it is. Overcome this obstacle and your life changes forever. So it's worth it. It's worth spending a good 3 weeks solid studying and getting the score that you need. That's it. Have a beautiful day and good luck with your IELTS exam.